Last summer, I decided to return to Harwick. I thought it would inspire me as a wildlife photographer, maybe even revitalize my career. It used to be a town full of laughter and adventure. Now it was more like a ghost of its former self. The woods where I played as a kid were quiet, the campsites overgrown and decayed. I kept thinking about how much it had changed. One evening, I grabbed my camera and set out. I wanted to find the perfect shot before the sun dipped below the trees. The golden light was beautiful, but the silence felt heavy. I took a few steps deeper into the woods when I spotted a strange circle made of stones. They were old and rough, with symbols carved into their surfaces. It looked like an old campsite, but something about it made my skin crawl. I shrugged it off and took a photo. Still, I felt like the forest was watching me. As the days passed, I explored the area more. I thought I heard whispers, but every time I turned to look, nothing was there. I convinced myself it was just the wind. One night, I felt drawn back to that stone circle. I was excited to capture something special. But when I reviewed my photos later, I noticed odd shapes lurking between the trees. They flickered in the images, shadows that didn't belong. My heart raced as I looked back at the woods, feeling uneasy. As the sun went down that night, a chill crept up my spine. The woods started to darken, and I heard low chanting in the air. It made me freeze. Should I move closer or run? I could hear something echoing around me, like a memory from long ago. The chanting grew louder, and it felt like I was drawn to it. I returned to the stone circle, my heart pounding. The air was thick and charged, almost electric. I thought I saw figures at the edge of my vision. Each time I turned to look, nothing was there. My hands shook, and I could feel countless eyes on me, probing in the darkness. Then the chanting stopped. I could hear my breathing loud and clear in the stillness. I felt stuck, not knowing whether to flee or stay. A part of me wanted to run. Another part wanted to uncover the mystery hidden in those woods. Just as I turned to leave, a whisper echoed from the darkness. "You shouldn't have come back." I whipped around, searching for the source, but nobody was there. The woods stood empty. The silence felt heavy all around me. In that moment, I started to question everything. I thought maybe I should have just left it all behind. What was hidden in those woods? I couldn't shake the feeling that I had touched something dangerous. I knew then that I wasn't alone. The next morning, I woke up restless. I couldn't shake the feeling that the woods were still holding secrets from me. Maybe I should have just left this place alone. My camera felt heavier in my bag, but I knew I had to go back. I had to figure out the mystery behind that stone circle. After breakfast, I grabbed my gear and ventured out again.
The sun was bright today, but the air felt thick. I made my way back to the circle, each step heavier than before. I kept thinking about the whispers and the chanting. Why was I so drawn to it? When I reached the stones, I noticed something new. The ground around the circle was disturbed. Fresh footprints? They were large and deep, unlike mine. I swallowed hard, the unease in my stomach growing. I took a photo of the prints, feeling like a detective, but unsettled by the implications of what they meant. As I squatted to examine the footprints, something snapped in the underbrush. I whipped my head around, heart racing. A small animal, maybe a deer, dashed away into the trees. I exhaled sharply, trying to calm my nerves. Then I heard it again, the low, distant chanting, just barely reaching my ears. My instincts screamed at me to leave, but curiosity took hold. I crept closer to the sound, heart pounding in my chest. The chanting seemed to rise and fall, echoing in the spaces between the trees. I edged toward it, each step cautious. Eventually, I stumbled upon a clearing. My breath caught in my throat as I saw them. A group of people stood in a circle, faces hidden by dark hoods. They were gathered around a large fire, chanting in unison. It felt like I had invaded a ritual. A rush of heat surged through me. I felt frozen in place, caught between wanting to flee and needing to understand. Suddenly, one of them turned, its gaze piercing through the trees, right at me. I ducked behind a nearby tree, panic flooding my veins. I could hear my heart thundering in my ears as I tried to remain silent. They continued their chanting, oblivious to my presence. I couldn't see their faces clearly, but I felt their energy crackling in the air. Everything about the scene was otherworldly. The colors of the flames danced brighter, casting weird shadows around them. I realized I was witnessing something I was never meant to see. Then, from the corner of my eye, I noticed movement. A figure emerged from the woods, tall and shadowy. I squinted to see better. That wasn't just anyone. It looked like someone I once knew, someone who had vanished years ago. My heart raced. What was going on? Who was that figure? I had to find out. But before I could take another breath, a sharp crack echoed through the trees, and darkness swallowed the clearing. I felt the forest closing in around me, leaving me disoriented. I couldn't see, I couldn't move. All I knew was that whatever happened next would change everything. The darkness wrapped around me like a thick fog. I stumbled backward, every nerve ending screaming for action. I was desperate to escape, but I couldn't find my bearings. I felt disoriented, like I had entered a different world, one that had no use for light or reason. Suddenly, the chanting stopped. Silence hung in the air, thick and heavy. My heart felt like a drum in my chest.
I held my breath, straining to hear any movement. Had they seen me? My hands trembled as I fumbled for my camera. I aimed it into the darkness, hoping to capture something, anything. The forest seemed to shift around me. I could hear whispers now, low and urgent, but they weren't coming from the clearing. They surrounded me, echoing through the trees. I wished I could make out their words, but the sound twisted and turned in my mind, filling me with dread. Then I heard footsteps, slow and deliberate. Panic surged, and I ducked behind a thick trunk. My heart raced as I listened intently. The footsteps grew closer, but I couldn't risk peeking out. A chill ran down my spine. If it was them, if they found me, what would happen? I felt the ground tremble below me. My thoughts raced back to the figure I had seen walking toward the group. The resemblance was unmistakable. Who could it be? I thought they were gone forever. My mind spun with possibilities, each one darker than the last. Before I could process any more, the chanting resumed, louder and more fervent. It was an eerie song that resonated through the very soil. The fear that had settled in my chest turned to resolve. I had to know what was happening. I had to confront my fear. Summoning my courage, I pushed myself up and stepped quietly toward the source of the sound. I had to see if the figure was still there. The path through the trees was narrow, each branch threatening to snag my clothes. As I reached the edge of the clearing, I peeked through the brush. The fire flickered wildly now, casting twisted shadows across the ground. The hooded figures were back, their backs to me as they swayed in rhythm. But there was something new.
The figure I had seen was standing at the center of the circle, bathed in the firelight. I squinted to see better. My breath caught again. The hooded figure pulled back their hood, revealing a familiar face that sent a shock through my entire body. It was someone I had once loved, a friend I hadn't seen in years. But that wasn't possible. Their disappearance haunted me. Confusion clouded my mind, but curiosity pulled me closer. I needed answers. I crept into the clearing, my heart pounding. Just as I took a step forward, a deafening crash shattered the night, and the ground shook beneath me. I looked up to see the hooded figures turning as one, their chants rising to a pitch fever. They saw me. My body froze, caught between fight and flight. But then a voice, deep and commanding, broke through the chaos. "What have you brought here?" It boomed, directed at me. I stood there paralyzed, knowing I had crossed a line. But deep down, something told me that whatever dragged me into this moment was only the beginning. I took a step back, my feet refusing to cooperate. The looming figures were closing in. A wave of murmurings washed over me, some angry, others contemplative. I scanned the clearing desperately, searching for an escape route.
My eyes were drawn back to the figure in the center. Their face was a mix of familiarity and something unrecognizable, a hidden truth buried behind those once friendly eyes. "What have you brought here?" The voice rang out again, heavy with authority. It carved through the night air, and for a brief moment the chanting fell silent. I wanted to scream, to tell them I hadn't brought anything, that I was merely an unwelcome observer. But my voice failed me. Even the forest held its breath, waiting for my response. Suddenly, the ground beneath my feet gave a menacing tremor. The sensation felt unnatural, like the earth itself was reacting to the tension in the air. Someone in the group spoke, and their words flew by with urgency, but I couldn't make sense of them. The crowd surged toward me, their silhouettes shifting like shadows. Just when I thought they would collide with me, my old friend stepped forward. "Wait!" They raised their hand, and the figures halted, their headlights' piers narrowing into a glare. I felt the weight of their gaze, a collective judgment that stung my skin. "Do you remember the stories?" my friend asked, their voice softer now, almost soothing. "They've returned for us, but you shouldn't be here." "What are you talking about? What is all of this?" My own voice broke, filled with desperation. The fire flickered brighter, its flames revealing hints of symbols etched in the dirt, a language I didn't understand, but instinctively feared. "You need to leave," they urged, glancing nervously at the gathering. Their expression shifted from concern to dread. "They're expecting." Before they could finish, one of the figures with an imposing frame stepped forward. The hood fell back, and though I braced myself for another familiar face, it was someone entirely different, someone dreadful. Their eyes glinted, a sharp light reflecting in the glowing embers. "Do you think you can just walk away? You brought this with you," they accused, pointing a gnarled finger at me. The accusation felt like ice seeping into my bones. Anger swelled within me, but it twisted with fear. I didn't bring anything. I was just trying to find the truth. A chorus of voices erupted around me, spitting out words that struck like ruthless daggers. I felt the ground shift again, a new tremor vibrating underfoot. Something was coming. The forest was awakening, and the shadows were closing in. I needed a way out,
My heart raced as I stumbled back, but I tripped over a root and fell hard. As I hit the ground, new symbols emerged from the earth, glowing softly under the firelight. They pulsed with a rhythm, the same rhythm I had heard in the chant. I scrambled up, desperation clawing at me. Just as I turned to run, a sudden realization crashed through me. They weren't just here for a ritual, it was something far more sinister. That's when I noticed it, a movement at the edge of the clearing. Someone else was watching, lurking just outside the fire's light.
My breath hitched in my throat. My instincts screamed at me to run, but I couldn't just turn my back on the figure circling me. The movement at the edge of the clearing pulled me like a moth to flame. I squinted, trying to see through the shadows, but the darkness guarded its secrets well. "Stay focused!" My friend's voice broke through the chaos, but the urgency in their tone escalated the fear bubbling inside me. I turned my gaze back to the crowd, now shifting uneasily, the tension among them palpable. Their faces twisted in uncertain anticipation, as if they were waiting for something or someone to act. "Who's out there?" I shouted, my voice cracking. I felt foolish for asking, but the figure in the shadows was all I could think about. What if they could help me? Or worse, what if they were part of this? No one answered. Instead, the imposing figure stepped closer, a long shadow cutting through the flickering light. "You don't understand what this is, do you?" Their voice slithered through the air, deliberate and menacing. I shook my head, sweat trickling down my back. "I don't even know why I'm here!" The figure let out a low laugh, a sound that sent chills racing down my spine. "You were drawn here for a reason. We're bound by something greater than you or me." Their gaze locked onto mine, intent and penetrating. "It's not just about the past. It's also about what you carry." "What I carry?" I echoed, my confusion deepening. Before they could respond, the whispers among the crowd intensified, turning into a cacophony of sound. I couldn't make sense of the scrambling voices, the rush of accusations overlapping one another. It was like a storm brewing, threatening to swallow me whole. And then, just as abruptly as it had begun, silence fell again. The forest was still, almost expectant. I felt a weight settle over me, and the shadows began to stretch, casting eerie shapes across the ground. A gust of wind swept through, stirring up leaves and debris. Then the figure in the darkness finally stepped into the light. It was a woman, her long hair cascading down her shoulders. Her eyes, however, held an otherworldly glow. Every step she took toward me seemed to thrum with energy, and I realized with dread that she was the source of the unsettling arrival I sensed before. "Do not be afraid," she said. "I am here to help you see the truth, but first you must understand the price." The crowd shifted again, an uneasy murmur rippling through them. My heart raced as I tried to process everything. What was the price? What was I supposed to give up? "Listen to her," my friend urged, stepping closer, their resolve shaking. "It's time to embrace what you feared. There is no escaping it now." Before I could question them, the ground shuddered once more, a more violent shiver this time. They were calling for something. The fire sparked, throwing erratic shadows against the trees.
I was caught in a web of choices, yet felt tethered between two worlds, the world of the night's dark secrets and the shards of my own truth. "Don't make me choose," I whispered, knowing whatever lay ahead would change everything. Suddenly, the glowing symbols on the ground flared up, illuminating the clearing like a spotlight, and the woman smiled knowingly. I knew then that the path forward wouldn't come without its sacrifices. My heart drummed in my chest as the light from the symbols illuminated the clearing. The shadows flickered, creating a surreal landscape around us. I felt exposed, more than ever. The sense of danger lingered in the air, heavy and suffocating. "What do you mean by the price?" I stammered, my voice barely a whisper. The woman took another step forward, her presence commanding, but not unkind. "It's the price of your willingness to confront what you've buried. You carry the weight of unspoken truths, and that cannot come without a cost," she explained, her eyes never leaving mine. I couldn't think. I didn't want to confront anything. The memories of that last summer flashed in my mind, fragments of laughter mixed with shadows of betrayal. I thought I had buried them deep enough. "Stop! Just stop!" I shouted, panic lacing my words. "I can't do this. I don't want to." The crowd shifted again, their faces a mix of anticipation and dread. They were gathering strength for something, and I was stuck in the middle of it. The energy crackled in the air, charged and apprehensive. "It's not just about you," the woman replied, her tone softer now. "It involves them, too. They are part of this cycle." She gestured toward the figures in the crowd, and for the first time I noticed a familiar face. My neighbor from last summer, the one who always waved as I passed her house. What was she doing here? "Why are you all here?" I demanded, desperation spilling into my words. "Because you summoned us," a voice from the crowd answered, steady and strong. "Your fears called us back. You opened a door that should have remained shut." A chill crept down my spine. I didn't remember summoning anyone. "No, I didn't mean to," I protested. "You can't run from this," my friend insisted, their eyes pleading with me to listen. "It's time to take responsibility for what happened." Suddenly, a rush of wind swept through the clearing, swirling leaves and dust in a chaotic dance. Then, without warning, the ground beneath me felt unstable, like quicksand ready to swallow me whole. I stumbled, trying to maintain my balance, but the symbols flared brighter, as if they were alive, urging me to step forward instead of retreating. At that moment, doubt turned into determination. I couldn't let my fear dictate my actions anymore. "Fine," I said, my voice firmer than I felt. "I will face it, but what will I have to give up?" The woman smiled, and I understood this was just the beginning. "Only what holds you back," she said, her gaze now fierce.
Embrace the truth, and you will find your way. That's when I noticed the symbols shifting, forming new patterns beneath my feet. An unsettling sensation coursed through me, like a warning. I was stepping into the unknown, and I wasn't sure I was ready for what lay ahead. Suddenly, the ground shook again, more violently this time, and someone screamed. The clearing erupted in chaos, the crowd dissolving into panic. Then, everything went dark. I gasped as a sudden light pierced through the darkness, my eyes struggling to adjust. I found myself on the ground, the cool earth pressing against my palms. The frantic sound of footsteps surrounded me, but in the haze I couldn't see who was next to me. "Everyone, stay calm," a voice shouted. It was the woman from before, now standing tall, with an intensity that cut through the fear. "We need to regroup." I pushed myself up, my heart racing. Shadows moved in the dim light, and I caught glimpses of familiar faces among the crowd. The panic was palpable. I saw my neighbor, her eyes wide as she searched the chaos. "Is everyone okay?" I called out, my own uncertainty bubbling to the surface. I wasn't sure if I was ready to confront anything just yet. "We need to leave this place," a man said, his voice shaky. "This isn't safe." "No," the woman interrupted. "We can't leave until we understand why we're here. You all felt the pull, the connection. This wasn't just a random gathering. You were drawn here for a reason."
My mind raced. I wished for clarity, for a moment of sanity in the midst of confusion. I remembered what led me to these woods in the first place, all the whispers, the excitement. It was supposed to be an adventure, not this. "What do you mean?" I asked, fear creeping back into my voice. "Why were we summoned?" "Because of the memories that bind you, the truth you've all kept hidden. The last summer ended, but the secrets did not." A shiver ran through me. The last summer had been filled with joy and betrayal, events I thought were buried, but clearly the past wasn't done with me yet. I glanced at my friend, their expression burdened. They knew, just as I did, that something was still unresolved. "I can't deal with this," I said, panic rising. "We should just leave." "That's not an option," the woman insisted, her voice straining under urgency. "You want to escape, but deep down you know that running won't erase what happened." In that moment I felt it, the anger, the sadness. It all bubbled to the surface, stirring into a frenzy of emotions. I was afraid of what it might unleash, but desperate for release too. Then, amid the chaos, I heard it, a low humming, like a distant echo pulling on my spirit. I turned my head, instinctively drawn toward it. It came from the symbols etched into the ground. "Follow the sound," the woman commanded. "It's calling to you."
With a hesitant step, I moved toward the symbols, each pulse in the noise resonating deep within me. The crowd followed, some glancing at me with questioning eyes. I felt like I was about to cross a line into something transformative. That's when I saw it, a flickering light emanating from one of the symbols, brighter and more vibrant than the others. The moment I locked eyes on it, a wave of heat rushed over me, and I realized I wasn't just facing my past, I was standing on the brink of confronting everything I had hidden. "Don't stop," my neighbor urged, her voice barely cutting above the noise. As I drew closer to the glowing symbol, the air grew thick with tension, and a new dread settled in my stomach. What truths would I unlock, and at what cost? Just as I reached out, the ground trembled again, more violently this time. A crack appeared, extending ominously toward me. I stumbled back, realizing I was not just confronting memories, but unleashing something far more dangerous. I gasped, stumbling as the ground rumbled beneath my feet. The crack widened, jagged and ominous, and for a moment I felt like everything was about to split apart. I looked around, and the faces in the crowd mirrored my fear. Some shouted in confusion, while others were frozen in place, unsure what to do. "Gather back!" the woman shouted again, her voice breaking through the noise. "We need to maintain our focus." But I was losing mine. The flickering light called to me, even as the ground shook violently. An overwhelming urge pushed me forward, but another part of me screamed to run. My instincts clashed as I shifted my gaze from the symbol to my friends. Their eyes were wide in terror, and I felt a responsibility to protect them, yet I was the one feeling utterly lost. "What if it's dangerous?" I yelled, my voice trembling. The woman shook her head, her expression fierce. "This is the key to understanding. Embrace it." With hesitant hands, I reached for the light, my fingertips tingling. A surge of energy coursed through me as I made contact with the symbol. In that moment, everything went silent. The chaos melted away, and I was enveloped in a blinding glow. Images flooded my mind, memories from the past summer, lost moments that I had buried deep within. I saw laughter and warmth, but then darkness seeped in, betrayal, shouting, tears. I tried to pull away, but the energy held me fast, forcing me to confront what I had repressed. "Help!"
someone shouted from the crowd as the tremors intensified. I could sense panic rising again as people scrambled to stay upright. The woman screamed for calm, but I was trapped, caught in the swell of memories. Suddenly, I saw a face in the swirling images, someone who had been close to me, someone I once trusted. A pain shot through my chest. I knew I had to face them, to understand why they had hurt me. "Stop!" The voice sliced through the fog. It was my neighbor, pulling on my arm. "We have to get out of here now!"
But the crack in the ground gaped wide, and something began to emerge from it, dark shadows swirling and creeping outward like smoke. The crowd gasped. Horror transformed their faces. Behind the shadows, I could almost make out shapes, figures that looked like us, but distorted, twisted. The connection I felt before instantly shifted from a faint tugging to a bone-deep dread. "What are they?" I whispered, fear wrapping around my throat like a vice. "They're reflections," the woman cried out, urgency in her tone. "Manifestations of your past. You have to confront them." The ground shook again, signaling their approach. I felt paralyzed with fear. I didn't want to face those memories. But at the same time, I could sense that the shadows represented more than just my regrets. They were pieces of all of us, spirits entangled in the history we feared. I looked back one last time at the glowing symbol. I had a choice to make: confront my past or allow it to consume us all. Just then, one of the shadows lunged forward, and everything around me blacked out. In that instant, my heart dropped as a deafening silence surrounded us. Something had awakened, and it felt closer than ever. I blinked, trying to shake off the darkness. The ground beneath me felt solid again, but there was no comfort in it. My heart raced as I took in my surroundings. The crowd was gone, swallowed by the shadows that had emerged. Panic rose like bile in my throat. "Hello?" I called, my voice weak. There was no answer, just the echo of my own fear. I stood alone in a void of nothingness. Then I heard it, a whispering, faint and elusive, echoing around me. The shadows shifted, drawing closer. My breath hitched as I scanned the dark. They moved with purpose, not just formless shapes, but echoing my fears, twisting into faces I recognized. Suddenly, I saw her, my best friend from last summer, Jess. Her face appeared just above the swirling shadows, eyes wide with disappointment. My heart sank. "No," I muttered under my breath, "not you." "Why did you leave me?" Her voice trembling with hurt. I felt the weight of her words settle like a stone in my stomach. "I didn't mean to. I thought you—" Panic surged in my chest. Jess's shadow flickered, forming into more vivid memories between us. The late-night talks, the laughter, and then the unforgiving silence after our last argument. I looked down, ashamed. "Confront her!" I heard the woman's voice again, resonating through the shadows that danced around me. "You must face the truth." But what truth? Did I want to know? "Jess, I was wrong," I said, my voice cracking. "I just didn't know how to deal with everything." I took a step forward. "I wanted to make it right." The shadow wavered, transforming into a whirlwind of emotions: anger, hurt, clarity. It was overwhelming. "You abandoned me," Jess whispered, each word piercing through the veil of darkness. "You turned away."
Doubt clawed at me. Was this really Jess, or a twisted version crafted by my own regret? But before I could think further, another shadow stepped forward, closer and clearer. It was someone I didn't expect. An old teacher, someone who had believed in me. His face contorted, disappointment etched into his features. "Why didn't you listen?" he asked, his words heavy with past lessons. "Stop!" I shouted, feeling trapped in this relentless loop. "I can't change it now." The shadows surged forward, overwhelming me with their whispers, their taunts.
The ground beneath me trembled, and the darkness threatened to swallow me whole again. Just when I thought I would be lost forever, I felt a familiar warmth, a fleeting sensation of my friends' presence. They were here, somewhere, perhaps trying to reach me. I took a deep breath, gathering my courage. If I had to confront my past, I wouldn't do it alone. "I'm not done yet!" I yelled, fighting against the creeping despair. Suddenly, a flash of light surged through the chaos. It erupted from the glowing symbol that was once behind me. I turned my gaze back, yearning for its reassuring light, but even as it pulsed, I felt it flickering. "Help!" I shouted into the void. "I need help!" But the shadows pressed on, clawing at my sanity. Then I saw something shift in the light, a figure emerging, and my heart raced even faster. Was it friend or foe? I couldn't tell, but I was out of time. The figure stepped forward, and my breath caught in my throat. It was my friend, the one I hadn't seen since the summer everything fell apart. "I'm here," they called, their voice cutting through the darkness like a beacon. "You're not alone." The shadows paused for just a moment as I turned to them, but the stillness was short-lived. My friend waded into the chaos, and I rushed toward them, fear and relief battling within me. "I thought I lost you." "You didn't," they replied, determination shining bright in their eyes. "We're in this together. Remember that summer? We faced it all side by side. You have to remember who you are." The shadows writhed, hostile and chaotic, but my friend's presence felt like armor. "We need to confront them. They're pieces of your past, but they don't have to control you." I swallowed hard, the weight of their words settling deep. "What if they consume me?" I asked, my voice trembling. "What if they don't?" my friend countered. "What if this is the chance to finally let go?" With every ounce of courage I could muster, I faced the shadows again. "I won't hide any more," I shouted, fueled by a mix of rage and urgency. They swirled around us, their forms shifting, eyes narrowing in anticipation. As I steeled myself, remembering the connections I had with those shadows, Jess, my teacher, the mistakes, something inside shifted. "You can't hurt me," I declared, trembling but resolute. "I see you, and I accept what you are."
My fears, my regrets, they are part of me, but they don't define me. The shadows recoiled, twisting and flickering like flames on the brink of extinguishing. The ground rumbled beneath, the very earth echoing my words. I turned back to my friend. "Let's do this together." They nodded, standing shoulder to shoulder with me. "Together," they affirmed. And then, with newfound unity, we reached out toward the swirling darkness. My heart raced as we stood resolute against the shadows that had haunted me for so long. "I accept you," I whispered. "Thank you for teaching me to grow." The shadows hesitated, their malevolence fading as acceptance washed over me like a wave. One by one, they transformed, reshaping into memories, fleeting glimpses of laughter and love lost, but also lessons learned. Jess smiled softly, her shadowy form infused with light, and she faded into a warm glow. "Let us go," I said, feeling lighter. More figures retreated into the soft light, their whispers turning into sighs of contentment. The energy in the clearing shifted, the tension broke, and the darkness began to recede, revealing the familiar surroundings of the woods. The crack in the ground sealed itself, and the symbol's warm glow echoed into the trees. My breath caught as clarity surrounded us, bright and vivid. We stood together, vanquishing the shadows of the past, yet I could still feel a lingering energy, a connection to something greater. "What now?" I turned to my friend, their resolute, unwavering, but wary. "I don't know," they admitted, glancing at the thick woods that stretched around us, uncertain but not unafraid. "We survived," I noted, feeling the weight of the journey still upon us.
And the secrets? I asked, wrestling with the implications of all that lay beneath the surface. They'll always be there, my friend replied, searching my eyes. But we face them differently now. We understand them. A silence filled the clearing, an ambiguous truce, and I felt both loss and freedom intertwining within me. I knew there were parts of the story yet unfinished, mysteries that would persist in my heart, a lingering echo of the past that I had chosen to confront but not fully resolve. As we started walking back through the woods, twilight wrapping around us like a comforting shroud, I glanced back at the clearing one last time. My heart raced with unease and excitement alike, a reminder that while I had faced my shadows, the lines between memory and reality remained blurred. As I stepped through the trees, I wondered whether I would ever return to Harwick, if those woods would always hold pieces of me I wasn't quite ready to unearth. But now I moved forward, not as a victim of my past, but as someone who had chosen to confront it. As I took my friend's hand, a part of me still felt tangled in the restlessness of the forest, uncertain and alive with possibilities yet unexplored.